Hello, this is Alex with Banging Your Head Until the Right Answer Comes Out. One more time. We've completed a lot, but now we're going to get on into a little more detail on T-SQL. We're going to write an insert statement. We're going to check if the insert statement worked. We're going to get the ID of the recently inserted record. We're going to create our first stored procedure, and we're going to call our new stored procedure. Okay, here we go. While we're waiting, this stored procedure we're creating, I'm hoping to call from a Lambda function at some point, which will be a basis for maybe a web page that calls to SQSQ, which then gets picked up by a Lambda function and completes the insert. So here we go. We've got a couple of select statements at the top of the screen. These are very basic select statements. Select is what I'm doing. Star is I want all fields. Not something you would use in production code, but when you're exploring things, it's fine. So from, where is the data coming from? And it's coming from customer.master. So if I run that statement, as you saw below, it gives me my three fields with values inside of them. And then this next select statement is basically the same thing over again, except now we're looking at customer.status. And we can execute that one by selecting it and hitting Control E, or we can hit execute. And you can see that I already have active, inactive, and hold statuses. Well, we're going to insert another status. And instead of using the cheap way, we're going to do it through T-SQL. Insert. It's a type of statement. It's saying what we're going to do. We're going to insert. What are we inserting into? The customer.status table. Inside the parenthesis here could be a comma-delimited list of fields. And then after this values would be a comma-delimited list of values going into those fields and their positional in relationship. Now in this case, we only have one field we're going to insert, which is status. The reason why we're only inserting one field, because even though there are two fields here, is the ID field is an auto-incrementing identifier. And it's got our tiny int as the data type. So we don't have to fill that. In fact, if we tried to fill that, the SQL Server would tell us no. So we've got a new status here. We're going to give a customer do not sell. So the customer was active. We put them on hold. They owed us lots and lots of money. They still didn't pay. They keep coming and trying to buy more things. So we're going to put them on do not sell. And then when they come up and they try to buy something, we're going to say no. So we're just going to highlight that. And we're going to hit execute up here. And it says one row affected. That's an important thing to know. We're inserting one row, so that gives us confidence that the right thing happened. So we could also get that information in T-SQL, running select at row count. In this case, it's a select statement, and we're getting, this is like a global variable. So we know one record was inserted, but I'd like to know the number, the identity, the ID of that record. So now we can execute this, and it says 3. So we can verify that. We go over here, and we execute that statement, and look, record ID 3, do not sell. All caps, we're very agitated. So that's a good introduction to an insert statement, but now we're going to continue forward with a stored procedure. So stored procedure, I use the default template, which isn't the best. And there's a bunch of text up here, which I'm going to ignore. And this stuff happens, you just need to make sure it's there. We could delve down into detail at some future point, but we've got to get back to working on AWS instead of just SQL Server. So there was a comment block here with author, create, date, description, so I filled those in. And then I added something that I learned from my previous employer, an example call. So we're declaring a variable, we're executing the stored procedure, and these are the two values that go to that stored procedure. And always you've got to remember that if you're getting something back from the stored procedure, you have to label it as output, not only in the declaration of the stored procedure, but to expect to get the value back. This would have started out as a create the first time we created the stored procedure. But since I've already created it, it would be an alter for any time we make changes to it. So create or alter, what kind of object, and the name of the object. All right, after that goes the parameters. What's coming in and going out of the stored procedure. In this case, we have customer name coming in up to 200 characters, and we have customer ID coming back to us, the auto-incrementing ID, so that the end user can then be informed what is their new customer's number. Then we do as. Anytime you have more than one statement, you need a begin and an end. Okay, that's good stuff. All right, so then we have our insert statement, same as we did before. It's an insert. I'm inserting into what table? Customer.master, parentheses, comma delimited, list of fields, name and status. If you notice these brackets around things, it's because they might be reserved words inside of SQL Server. Someday I'll learn how to talk. And they would show up as a bright blue, just like this insert. But we don't want that. We want bright blue to mean that it's a part of the syntax of the statement. And these black ones, we want to know it's either some kind of table item or variable. So anyway, I digressed. So we're sending the fields name and status are going to be filled in. Again, this table, let's go back to here, has 3 fields, but this first field is an auto-incrementing identifier. So we don't have to send that. The system's going to populate it, and then we're going to get it. So here we go, values. We're sending it at customer name, which was sent into the stored procedure, and we're sending it as 0 because the customer is active. We're not going to create an inactive customer, and they haven't pissed us off yet to make them do not sell. Next, as we saw before, except now in the stored procedure, we're going to have an if statement here. And we're saying if the at row count is not equal to 1, begin. We're going to print a message to the screen, well, inside SQL Server anyway. We're going to put the value -1 into customer ID. And that's going to be a hint to whatever's calling this stored procedure that something went horribly wrong. We don't give IDs of negative numbers. And in return, we're going to return, and that means that no more logic will be executed. There's nothing else really to do. Next, we're going to select into our customer ID, our output field, scope identity, which gives us the ID of the table we most recently inserted to in this session. We're printing it up on the screen, which only really works inside of SSMS, and then we're returning the variable. I don't think we actually even need that, but let's try. So since I've got the alter procedure here, I'm just going to execute that whole page, and then we're going to go over here. So this code is in essence the same code as what's over here in our example call. I just put it in a different screen. Okay. So we've got declare. We're declaring a variable at customer ID, and we're giving it a type. We're executing the stored procedure. This is our stored procedure. And we're sending it positionally the name of the customer, and we expect to get the customer ID back with the output. And then we're selecting or showing a data set of what's in that customer ID. So we're going to change this to well, maybe it's his ERP solution. So then we're going to execute it, and it returned a value, 500,001. Well, we can verify that that worked, although here, before we do anything else, let's go to messages, and we printed the customer number, and we also had one row affected when we did our insert. These are all good things. So very quickly, we'll just write up a select statement, very general, from our customer.master table, and execute that. And there we see ID 500,001, Bob Pope, his status is 0. Okay, so that was very quick. How to write an insert statement, find out if the insert statement worked, get the identity or ID that was returned, that was created when you did that insert, and then the whole thing wrapped up in a stored procedure. Thank you.